All right, nerds. Here we have the Benthos live experience. Thank you for the one person who's liked this video even before we started. I promise not to let you down. We've got Rob here. Rob is. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello. Yeah, I'm technical evangelist at Cockroach Labs. I'm Rob Reed. For my sins, I've been a software engineer for about 18 years, and now technical evangelizing at CockroachDB, and hopefully in a small way Benthos and Ash,
He is
with whom I
gonna.
love dearly.
He's gonna help me not fuck this up, basically.
I
So,
can't guarantee that.
right, what we're doing today, I'm gonna do a. So what I'm working on is demos. I've actually gotten somewhere already. Not massively far, but what I've got is I'm gonna hey Mihai. I knew it was Mihai. What I've got so far is a setup where I'm running CockroachDB and I'm running NATS, and I'm just going to put some demo configs together. So I figured this is going to be a demo of like an enrichment service where you're getting messages that represent entities in some sort of social media platform. Doesn't need to be any in particular. People are probably going to imagine it's the Thomas the Tank Engine fan group, but it's going to be unspecified at this point. And the idea is, I'll tell you what, actually,
Are there any other types of fan group?
there's like branches of the Thomas the Tank Engine fan group. So there's a Thomas the Tank Engine fan group that specializes in Redis, for example.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's like a CockroachDB variant as well.
Of Thomas the Tank Engine, there absolutely is. Yeah.
Let's see. We've got. I'm going to blow this up so it's easier for people to read on the streams. But yeah, this is a branch that's actually checked into the GitHub repo right now. So if people want to mess around with this, they can actually do it right now as we're going.
Good heavens.
Yep. Okay, right, so...
Well, that's a bit easier. I can see that there's writing now. I'll cancel my optician's appointment for tomorrow.
There is an option on the Discord. By the way, anybody can come and join us in the Discord. If you want to do that, there is a link in the description for the community pages whereupon you can find the Discord and then come and bother us on that. Mihai, can you just confirm that you can hear Rob okay?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
It'll take a while because of that delay. But yeah, so what we've got so far is, I'll tell you what, actually, I can try and draw the architecture. That'll be fun, won't it? I can play with all my toys today.
Ooh, what's this?
So I noticed that in thing, how do I get your window on here? I want you all the time. I want you on here all the time. Yeah, if I use my iPad, I can actually draw on the same thing at the same time, and I don't have to screen share my iPad. But what I'm going to do basically is, so we're going to essentially make up a streaming platform that's based on like a social media platform. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a feed of posts that could represent like somebody posting like an article somewhere. So imagine it could be like an article on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but that's going to be like the almost like the centerpiece of social media interactions. And obviously posts are going to be done by authors. So we're going to have authors, or actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to call this just users. So we're going to have users as entities, and then finally we're going to have comments, I think, is what we're doing. So posts, users, and comments all make up part of our platform. And these are going to be happening as like events coming from the website. So that the web platform is going to be creating these. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be storing them in CockroachDB. So that's going to be like a direct interaction. So all of these are going to be going into the... I'm going to draw a really good cockroach. How many legs does a cockroach have?
Well, the logo, none. But I imagine it has 6 legs for
For
real life.
realsies. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's the cockroach. So all of this stuff is going to get stored in a database. So that's pretty much just a run-of-the-mill. Like, you imagine that's like baby's first platform architecture, where you're just building a website or something, and all of these entities just get added into the thing. So somebody posts an article, it gets put in CockroachDB. And each of these entities is essentially just a shell, only containing the information that's relevant. So you imagine a post comes through and it's going to have content. So, help, I'm being abducted, could be like the content. And it's going to have obviously an author, but we're just going to have that author as an ID. But in reality, the author is a user, and the user has like an avatar, they have an email address, they have a description of themselves, they have like all this stuff associated with them. But that's obviously not going to be associated with the post itself. So the post is just going to come with a user ID. And comments are going to be similar. So a comment is going to be associated with a post. So you can add a comment of like, I don't care, shut up, for example. And that's going to come from some other user, or it could be the same user, but essentially that's going to have a user associated with it. And again, we're just going to have a user ID, but we're also not going to have the entire post. So when a comment comes in and it gets added to the database, obviously we don't have a table that includes all of the post contents. We're just going to have the contents of the comment itself. And then what we'll have is a post ID. And what we want to produce is a stream. So because it's a stream, I'm going to give it a big arrow. And the idea is that this thing is going to be a live stream of data that we can react on in some other system. So imagine like the main platform is going to be this CockroachDB in the website that's like creating all these stored entities and stuff. But then in a separate area of the business, the technical team, we're going to have a stream of data that we might want to do all kinds of stuff with. So that could be like creating alerts. So you could have somebody registered to get an alert whenever their name gets mentioned, for example. So what you want is potentially posts here, and you might want comments as well. You're not going to want like a specific alert every time somebody makes a user account, but you might want an alert when there's a comment that mentions you. So we're going to have posts and comments coming through this feed. And the idea is they're going to be enriched with the user info. So user info in the case of posts, and user info, and also the post contents when you're getting a comment. So imagine you've got like an alert. I want to know every time I get mentioned on this social media platform. And what you want to receive is, if a post comes through that mentions you, you want to see who posted it. So all the user info, what's their name, what's their address, all that stuff. And then you also might want the contents of the post, and maybe you'll enrich it with some other stuff, but we're not going to be worrying about that for now. But the important thing is it has added information on it. It's not just the raw post itself. And then when you receive a comment that mentions you, you're actually going to have the original post contents as part of that event. So you don't just get like an alert saying, hey, somebody said on some post, Ash stinks, because you might be interested in what the original post was that prompted somebody to say Ash stinks. It could be a post that says something like, lie about somebody you know, in which case it changes the reaction you're going to have on that comment. So it's important that comments are coming through this stream pipeline, and it's going to have to be enriched by the time that you receive it on this other end of the platform. So I'm going to put a little dotted line here because it essentially separates the two sides of the two business ends. But the way that I'm going to implement this in my demo is all of the stuff. So these posts and users and comments, these are all going to be Benthos instances. Oh, messed that up, didn't I? It's all going to be Benthos. And then on the right side, we're going to have NATS as the main streaming service that's going to essentially persist all of these events while they're in flight. And then obviously we're going to have Benthos doing the enrichments and stuff like that. So you could say that NATS is going to be like the end point of this demo, because it's going to contain the live stream of enriched stuff, and it's Benthos that's going to get it there, get it to that point.
So essentially, we've got the transactional outbox.
That sounds like it means what this is.
In enterprise architecture terms, I guess.
So this is all going to live in NATS world. And obviously, while we're doing the enrichments, I'm not sure I'm going to get to it today, but the idea is that if you really wanted to go crazy with this, you need to anticipate the fact that you might actually get a comment. Oh, and this whole stream, by the way, is going to be the CRDB change log, the change feed. So we're actually going to be using the change feed to stream all the data out as it's coming.
And you use core change feed, don't you? The very experimental change feed,
yeah, the free one, because I'm a cheapskate.
You can spin up Cockroach demo on your machine. Instead of Cockroach start single node, you can spin up Cockroach demo instead, which launches an in-memory enterprise cluster.
Oh, okay.
And you can also use Cockroach serverless for free.
What's the limitations of that? What can't I do with it?
Demo. So demo, we don't recommend for production clusters. It's all on what, like, you can spin up a simulated multi-node, multi-region cluster on your machine. Limitation-wise, don't run it like for real workloads.
Yeah, don't run it. Don't run it for realsies, guys.
But it's great for testing out products. You've got all of the functionality of CockroachDB already on your machine if you have the Cockroach binary. So you can work against the enterprise change feeds, and in so doing, you unlock CDC queries, which allow you, in this case, to say, give me all the posts as they update, but only if they're published, for example. So you can work against posts, and at the point at which you're ready to publish, you flick the flag over the Boolean column to true, and it's at that point that update notifications start going to the CDC endpoint. But I feel like that is a bit of a digression from the proposed.
Well, look, I'm the Benthos guy. I'm going to do it with Benthos.
Do it.
But you heard it here first, folks. You can actually get the entirety of CockroachDB Enterprise for free, and he's messed up here. This is...
So Cockroach Demo is designed exactly for that, but you can also get Cockroach Enterprise in the cloud for free as well with CockroachDB serverless. I feel like a salesperson, but I want people to know that there is a low barrier to entry.
Is there something? So we've obviously got this change feed connector now in Benthos land. Is there something I would need to change for that you know of to benefit from the enterprise stuff? Because obviously I'd need some way for users to specify the query, right?
So let's have a look at a config. Once we're in there, I'll keep.
Because I assumed I wouldn't be able to access any of that stuff, so I didn't really bother implementing.
No, of course. No, you're using create experimental change feed, and the only thing you need to do in order to enable enterprise change feed is have an enterprise license, which you'll get from demo or CockroachDB serverless, and and then remove the experimental keyword from the create statement.
Interesting. Okay. Will Benthos query Cockroach do the enrichments? Yes. So what I'm going to do is all the enrichment stuff is going to come from CockroachDB. So basically, you've got three entities here. You've got CockroachDB, which is basically the source of truth. That's where your data exists. If you think about it, that's the place that needs to not die, which I'm assuming is why this hypothetical organization has chosen Cockroach, so that they've got the horizontal and all the good stuff about replicating the data in multiple places, ideally multiple data centers, ideally multiple planetary systems.
Ideally.
And then NATS is going to be the way of fanning that stream out to other people. So what you might do is we're going to have this enriched feed of posts and comments that's just everything. It's basically a fire hose of all the data that's going to be entering the database. including any modifications, updates, that kind of stuff. So that stream is just going to be a live feed of what is the latest thing as it's being done. So a comment will come in when it's created or when it's updated, that kind of stuff. And ideally, it's going to be enriched with all this data. And then you would give that to other organizations. So maybe like some other team wants that data for something, and you're just going to tell them, hey, use NATS, here's the connector for it. And that gives you the stream. And if they really want to be clever about it, if they say, no, we'll use our own tools, thank you, they can maybe just hook into CockroachDB themselves. Or you just tell them, no, you're going to use this. And you put your foot down. But yeah, so this is basically, so what I've got so far is the Benthos stuff on the left here. All of this stuff for generating the data. So what I'm doing is I'm generating a bunch of random users and populating them into CockroachDB. I'm generating a load of posts, and then I'm generating a load of comments. Let me show y'alls what that looks like. So I've got my Docker Compose, which is just CockroachDB in single node, insecure, because just don't hack
the
me.
seat of our pants.
And I've got NATS. I'm just running NATS without any arguments right now, because I think for my demo for now, I'm just going to try and get it to the point where I'm just writing the data into NATS. What I would like to do is I want to get it to, because obviously, so you might receive a comment before you've actually received the post. So there's potential for all kinds of race conditions. Somebody could post something and then immediately somebody's commented, and just by virtue of the world being a crazy, chaotic place, the comment could arrive in the change feed before the post does, and therefore, ideally, we need to have some sort of like retry logic. So you imagine we've got Benthos reading this change feed, and as a comment comes through, if we can't actually find the post that it's referencing in order to enrich it with that data, we'll need to send it to some sort of dead letter queue and try it again. So I might try and put as much of that into NATS as I can, because obviously you can spin up multiple Benthos instances that would create like a sort of cascaded delay retry queue, where you basically just put data that's failed into some like second lane, some other topic of data on NATS, and then some other Benthos instance will pick that up later, give it a delay, and then carry on. And then if that fails, you try again. Or you can swim lane it.
Are you worried about the order of messages being messed up? At which point are you worried about the order of messages being mixed up?
So it doesn't really matter on a technical level whether there's even a chance that posts and comments could come. Basically, posts and comments are going to be coming in order just by virtue of the necessity of this platform. Because you imagine, like, it's going to be impossible for somebody to comment on a post unless that post exists in the database. Yeah. But from like a demo standpoint, for somebody using, because obviously I'm going to use this week to some extent, but what I would like to do is share this online as like a cookie cutter. Here's an entire social media platform example.
Here's what good looks like.
And the idea is that's going to have the quality of being able to do proper retries for when things are flaky, because that's the biggest risk with the streamed feed when you're doing enrichments, is what happens if the thing that I need to enrich it with doesn't exist yet. Do I just drop the data forever, or do I send it through incomplete, or what do I do then? And if you've got a solid answer for that, then it can just apply generally. You don't have to worry about it. And what I want to do is I want to be able to just like ideally knack the message and have NATS do the rerouting, the retry, because I'm fairly sure that stuff is baked into NATS. We'll need Jeremy to come and confirm that, but I'm probably not going to get around to it today anyway. So we'll just put it in NATS for now and have that as the feed. So we've got these two services running, and then what I've got is these generate configs. So the first one is generating users. So we use the generate input to create a count of 10,000 users. Do we need 10,000?
This is web scale.
10,000 users. The data that we've got here is we just have an ID. I'm prefixing all of the IDs with the entity type just because it looks nicer in the demo, but obviously ID can be whatever you want. And what I'm doing is I'm just counting the rows. So we're going to start with user ID 1 and we'll go up to 10,000. And then I create a fake name, I create a fake email, and this creates a feed that is then going to get dumped into the database. Mihai says, if reliable delivery is needed, we'll need NATS Jetstream. No, that is the case. So I think basically the final version of this is it's going to be NATS Jetstream. That is like the canonical feed that everybody's going to be reading from. But obviously it's very, very easy to start just with NATS and then move on to Jetstream afterwards. But yeah, I'm going to worry about that later.
Just before Mihai sent his message, Marco said it is, and I think that might be in relation to NATS handling the retries. Just a quick one on the ID for the user. This is the ID for the user in Cockroach.
Yeah, it will be. So what I'm doing is I have a table schema where I'm actually creating the ID. So I'm basically choosing that as my primary key. So I'm not expecting Cockroach to generate one for me. I'm doing that.
Can we use a UUID? I'm just wondering, because for new deployments of Cockroach, we'd always recommend UUIDs because of the nature of distributed.
You're not my mum. This is my stream. The only reason why, so yes, I would 100% go with the UUID. The reason why I'm not right now is because I need to generate fake data that does actually join up. So I'm going to be generating posts, and I need to know that I can generate a post with a randomly chosen user, and that user will actually exist. The only reason why I'm not using UUIDs is because of that.
Yeah,
unfortunately. But yeah, for best practices, 100% I tell people use a UUID. If you give me any more suggestions, you're getting muted. In fact, I'm going to ban you from the Discord.
I'll mute myself.
That's not why you're here.
And I'll sit on my hands.
So yeah, what we end up with is these user ID 10, user ID blah, and we've got names such as King, Taylor, Marquard. I love this fake package. So good. But yeah, anyway, this is what the data is going to look like for users, and for posts, it's basically all the same thing. Posts, it's slightly different because what I have is I have an ID for the post, and I'm creating a random integer for this because it's going to be a continuous stream. I'm not just going to generate a dump of them. I'm going to have the demo create one of these every second, just so it looks cool, looks like it's happening in real time. And then each post is going to have some content, so I'm going to put a fake paragraph on it, and then it has an author, which is a user ID, and this is the bit where I need to know that I can create a random integer, minimum 1, maximum 1,000, and it's actually going to exist in the database. And that way, I can be sure that the data will actually join up and it'll look interesting, because otherwise we're just going to end up with a bunch of enriched data where there's no actual enrichment. So this I can show you, generate posts. It's going to look a little bit like this. So we have these posts coming through, one every second, and it has an author. It's got some content, and then it's got an actual ID for the post itself. And then finally, we've got these comments, which is very, very similar. I'm generating one of these every second, and the idea is that it's basically the same thing, except this has an author and a post ID, and both of these we need to know exist. I'm going to limit the number of users. I'm going to say we're only going to have a maximum of 1,000 users. So that's correct, and this is correct. And how many posts are we going to have? We're going to have a potential 10,000 posts. That's crazy engagement with this platform. Thomas the Tank Engine fans are fuming about some scandal. I'll tell you what, we'll go with a... I'm going to limit this pool. I'm going to say we're going to have 10 posts. Just for now. Rob, I need affirmation, please.
For 10 posts, I thought Thomas the Tank Engine was more popular. Perhaps not.
Okay, we can have a flood of comments. It's just 10 posts. There's one Thomas the Tank Engine fan who gets to post. Everybody else is shadow banned. But they all get to comment. I can increase it because the thing is, I'm going to be generating a
No, that
post
makes
every second, so it's going to get to the point where if the comments have like a pool of 1,000 IDs that they can post from,
we're never going to see the one that gets comments
yeah,
on.
you're never going to get
Yeah.
them hydrated.
No, I think 10.
The thing I could do though is I could do like when I start the demo, the first thing I could do is I could just dump like 10,000 articles into a table, like I'm doing with the users, because the users is basically a backfill. I'm generating 1,000 users, dumping them in the database, and then this finishes. But I don't know if I
10,
want to do that.
It's not a test of scale, is it? It's a test of integration and work and data pipeline. So I think 10 posts is more than enough.
Tell us in the chat. 10 posts not enough. 10 posts is enough. The other thing I'm doing, so this is what the SQL, so writing into CockroachDB, these generate Benthoses. The way that this looks is it's the SQL insert output. Obviously, it's compatible with Postgres. We're using Postgres. And then what I've got is I've got the details of like the table and the columns. I'm adding this updated app, but we actually get that as info from the change feed itself. But I'm just adding it as a column because I want to demo some of the fun Bloblang stuff you can do inside these inserts. And what I've also got is I've obviously got my on-conflict statements, so these are upserts when needed. But the other thing I've got is I've got these init statements where I actually create the table itself. So this is the output that writes into the user's table, and it has an init statement that makes sure that the user's table exists. I might take this out because it makes this config big. And in fact, it's not necessary because I've got this init script that I'm running anyway. But if you're watching this stream and you like the idea of having the init scripts as part of the generating config, let me know. And like and subscribe. If you comment on this stream and you haven't liked and subscribed, that's basically stealing. So don't do it.
Punishable by death in some countries.
We don't have those means yet. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to promise people they're going to get murdered because I don't want somebody coming and saying, "Oh, I did that and nothing happened."
The guy got demonetized.
I'm just going to say I hope you get murdered, but I'm not promising it's going to happen. Okay, so we've got a user table, post table, comments table. This will happen when we create the thing because I've got the init scripts there mounted in the volume. And that's basically it for the generate thing. So I'm actually going to run these. I'm just going to clear my Docker just to make sure I don't have this already. Bring those up and then put these in the background. So that's going to run my NATS and my CockroachDB. Let's get those logs. Yep. It's done it. It's created the 3 tables, and we've also the bit up here set cluster setting kv.rangefeed.enabled that creates our experimental change feed from CockroachDB. So that means all of these tables, when they get written to, they're going to be spawned as change feed events. I have not looked into what the implications are with like disk usage and stuff. I'm assuming that has a performance impact on disk usage, right? You wouldn't want to just do that unless you're using it.
Oh, what, enable range feeds? No, that's just a cluster setting. That won't have a performance impact.
Is there a reason not to just do that by default?
I think something tells me it's enabled by default anyway. Let me have a look.
No way! Then why did you make me do it?
Let me have a look.
Also, if you're listening to this stream and you think, what is Rob on about? He doesn't know anything about Cockroach. Feel free to come in and you can roast him.
Oh yeah, either come in here or see both of us in person on Thursday.
Yeah, come in and hang out with us. Is it open invitation or do people have to like request a spot?
I think there might be a meetup page, but you can register via Swoogo. We've got a Swoogo page, whatever that is.
What
So
happens if a
yes,
rando shows up? Are you going to let him in?
yeah.
Do you want to say where it is?
Unless they're wielding a hatchet.
Do you want to say
I think
where and
that's the
when
only
it
rule.
is? In fact, we can stick it as a comment in the stream. I can put it in the description of the video
Yeah.
as well, actually, if you want. It's getting quite close to the event, so I don't know if you want any last-minute entries in there or not.
Stragglers. So about the range
Sticker
feed,
fiends.
it's enabled by default. It's enabled by default for CockroachDB serverless, but it has to be enabled otherwise.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah.
So I did the right thing.
You did the right thing.
Thank you, Daddy. Okay, so this is the other one. So these three configs, I'm going to run those now. So we've got Benthos. Oh, actually, let's make this bigger. 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 Is that big enough for people? Say in the chat if you want this bigger. Say in the chat if you don't want this bigger. Okay, so we're going to generate users. Done. So now we have 1,000 users in our database. And then I'm going to leave this one generating posts. And in this corner, we're going to have Benthos generating comments. And we get the error to say that bind address already in use. So what that means is this instance of Benthos here on the left has claimed the port 4195, which is the default for the Benthos HTTP server. And this one on the right has also attempted to bind to that, and it got put in its place. So it's had a little whinge, but it's just going to carry on, so we don't have to worry about that. And the ones on the bottom. So I've just got the one. What is going on with this window size? That's just silliness. That is unnecessary.
Is that new behavior? Because I think it crashed in it initially if the port was already being used by another Benthos instance.
I might have changed that in V4.
Yeah, it's nice.
Because I just don't like it. It ends up being like, yes, you should obviously throw some sort of error if you can't bind to your own thing, but it's a very like operationally rather than production-y issue. The fact that you can't access the port. So I mean, you can always just stop the service if you do want to change the config, but it doesn't really make any sense to stop you from being able to do any stream processing just because you can't bind to a particular port for like observability details.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's kind of like a soft issue. So it doesn't really make sense to completely stop Benthos from running entirely. I suspect I probably changed that from version 3 to 4. And in V5 I'm going to change it back again, just to keep people on their toes. Okay, so what's happening right now in the background that you can't even see is there's now data being pushed into our CockroachDB tables, and NATS isn't really being used for anything yet. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a Benthos that consumes the CockroachDB change feed, and we're going to access both the posts and not the users. We don't care about users. Posts and comments tables, and that is going to give us a live feed of all the yummy data as it's being added. So if I comment out all the processing stuff, because there's some stuff I've already put in here that y'all don't need to worry about yet. So let's run this. Stream changelog. Oh, what have I done? Okay, need to get rid of these. It's fine. Failed to resolve targets in the change feed. Database default DB does not exist. Default DB does not exist.
You got an error when you started up saying you couldn't create default DB because the default DB already existed.
Oh. Hang on, let's have a look at that then.
Have you got the cockroach binary on your machine?
Probably not. Can I get that with DNF?
Not sure. I installed it by brew.
This is a stream where I'm going to fail to put my password in like 5 times. I'm sorry, people. So I can get... I could probably just install it with Golang, can't
I have you got brew?
Not on this.
You can download the binary. Do you want me to send you a link?
Yeah, go on, yeah. I'm sure I was running this earlier today and it was fine. Failed to read message, row read. Oh, what are you doing? Database default DB does not exist, but then these ones were quite happy. Localhost 26257. That is the right port.
Are you running an M1 Mac?
This is on my PC, so this is a beefy AMD 64. Should I just try running it again?
You can do.
Wouldn't it be funny if...
I'll drop a comment on the YouTube chat with a link to the AMD binary.
Wouldn't it always be the case that default DB exists?
No, you can drop it. There's a few protected databases, but default DB isn't one of them.
Have I been hacked? Somebody stream sniped me. The SSH just deleted
your local host.
Please don't hack me.
You can always just create the database again. The reason I sent you the binary is so that you can access the SQL shell. So because you're exposing the 26257 port through Docker Compose, you'll be able to access it via your local host.
Where have you posted that?
The YouTube chat. Do you want me to send it elsewhere?
I'll get it eventually. It's going to be delayed AF.
I'll message you on Discord. There you go.
Thank you. Not on
You're
here.
most welcome.
I want it here. While we do this, if you're either enjoying this stream or not enjoying the stream, please like and subscribe. Here we go.
So,
give me that sweet cockroach meat. Do you still get like occasional pressure to what? Can I execute binary file exec format error?
I sent you the right link, I swear.
It says AMD 64 here. Oh, you've given me for Darwin. I'm a Linux boy on here.
I was looking up and I saw an Apple. Silly boy.
It's so yeah. Just to add confusion, it's because my laptop is what I'm streaming from, and I'm SH'd into my PC, which is also my gaming PC.
I'll send you another. Do you call it a gaming PC, or do you have to at that point start calling it a rig?
I'll allow you to call it a rig. I'm quite happy with my PC.
I've just sent you a new link. Sorry, I'm hogging up all your wonderful bandwidth.
The rig.
Be right back. My son's crying.
Right. Right, we want guesses in the chat as to what the problem actually is. Okay, here we go. Initialize a cluster, open an SQL shell. Statement diag for running statement diagnostics. That looks like it's probably what I want. Okay. And the actual thing we're running is... right, let's get this query. I'm assuming I have to specify the database as well, right? Da, 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 da.
Sorry about that. I'm back.
It's cool.
So you're running it.
I got it. I'm assuming I
So-
want to run the statement
Cockroach
diagnostics.
SQL. No, I'm just thinking, go to cockroach SQL -- insecure. Connect to your cluster.
Like that? Oh,
Yeah, and then show database. Oh, you've connected to the default DB.
is it possible it's is it possible this Benthos instance is connecting to something else? What is going on? What is real?
Possibly.
What is life?
But then you've got, it's all happening from within your Docker Compose environment, isn't it?
This is all on my
Oh, is it, you're connecting to your local host?
yeah.
Okay.
Or am I?
Can you go back to the config?
So the config's here.
Postgres root, localhost 262.57 default DB.
SSL mode disable.
Can you try something else?
Hold on. Let me try this first.
Yeah.
Let me try this. Oh, okay.
Ooh.
That's okay. So what's interesting is I had a cursor already saved from previous mucking around. So I already had this cursor timestamp. So that's obviously not going to associate with the current database because it's like a complete fresh thing. So I wonder if the query looks... So the query is going to look... I can't remember how Benthos creates it, but it's going to look like it's asking for a cursor that doesn't exist. So maybe CockroachDB is getting confused because it's trying to look up like a cursor for something that's not real.
Maybe.
We get an error back that's just kind of vague because of that. But the important... How do I exit? Oh my god, it's like Vim. I'm getting flashbacks. Yeah, what's important is that we are running. So here we go. This is the change feed. So we're getting our articles and our comments coming through. And the format here, so the way that you get it structured is you have a bunch of data that's kind of JSON stringified. So you have a primary key, which is a JSON stringified array. So this is a JSON document. The primary key is this JSON stringified array. The row is a JSON stringified like summary of what the row is. So after represents the data after this change, because it's the change feed. So this is what the data looks like afterwards. And it tells you when it was updated and some other stuff. And it also gives you the table. That's something I have added in my mapping. Oh no, actually that is from the original thing. I can confirm it was pepcak. Like, it's like the cheekiness of me wanting to see if something breaks. Like, out of curiosity, I wanted to leave something in that was going to be potentially flaky, a flaky situation, and wanting to see what happens, but then afterwards forgetting that I'd done that, and then tripping up on my previous self. So it's like I've left a trick that has then tripped me up. But anyway, so we can re-add this cursor cache now, and I'll just delete the old file because that doesn't associate with anything real. And then what I've got is I've got a mapping here, which will take this form that's not particularly nice because it is like these nested JSON stringified fields, And what I've done is I've got a mapping that will take out this dot row, parse it as JSON, and then we go for the after field because this is the structure here. So we've got a primary key, which is JSON stringified thing, containing all the primary keys of the row. And then we've got the row itself, which contains this JSON stringified thing, and then we've got a table. So what I'm going to do is I've got the JSON parsed bit, and then I just want the what's within after, because I just care about the state of the data after this change that's been received. Everybody in the chat can shut up. I meant to do that. It's interesting content. If everything just went well, then it wouldn't be an interesting stream, would it? And then we've got this table field. So the way that I've named my tables, I'm pretty sure everybody who's sane does this, where you name your tables as plural. So you say posts rather than post. I know there are some people out there.
I do the exact opposite. I name everything singular.
So you just got comment as a table.
Yeah.
Select ID from comment. Is that what your query looks like? You're a psychopath.
To be fair, it depends on the day and the direction of the wind, and the team I'm working in.
So
I've worked in teams where they felt very strongly about using singular nouns for everything.
Yeah.
Not for everything, for database stuff.
Well, that would have been nice in this case, because what happens is I'm getting the change feed stuff, and then what I want to do is I want to have a type. I want to kind of like classify these with like a type field that describes the entity. So what I want to have is type post, type comment. But because my table is plural, what I do is I want to use that, but I have to trim the suffix. So this dirty little mapping. But obviously for people who are candidates for being serial killers, such as Rob, who like to name their tables in the singular, you won't have this issue. You can just take the table as is.
You're missing an edge case. Geese. If your table's called geese, you're going to need to change that to goose.
I'll tell you what, if I give this demo out and somebody takes this and copy paste it, and they come back saying, "Oh, I tried to run your scripts and it didn't work," then I'll deal with that when it comes. I'll charge them for support. You got to leave yourself some sort of revenue stream with these things. You can't give it all away for free. So now we have a mapping. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to re-stream the change feed, and it looks a little bit like this. So we've got now author is the user ID. We've got content, and we have an ID, and then we have a type. So this that I've highlighted here is a post. We should have comments in here as well. Yeah, here we go. This is a comment. My highlighting is unreadable, unfortunately. I'll need to fix that. But yeah, this is a comment. But the comment, as you can see here, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pipe this through JQ. So let's have a look at a nice example. So here's a comment down at the bottom here. So you can see that we've got an author, we've got content, we've got an ID, which is comment something massive. What's the limit on my comment IDs? Oh, okay, yeah, there is no limit. Yeah, it doesn't make sense because we're not trying to join stuff of a comment. There is a world where we have posts, comments, and we also have like likes and reshares and all these higher level events above a comment, but we're not worrying about that today. So in the world where I were to do a demo where we'd be joining up something to the comments, then yes, I would want to make sure that the comments are restricted to IDs of a smaller group. But for now, I'm just making any random integer, 64-bit integer, for my comment IDs. And then the other thing we have is the post. So we have the ID of the post that this is a comment of. So post 8. We have its type is typed as a comment, and then we have updates there. So what I need to do next is I need to configure the logic of when we receive a comment from this change feed, how do I add the article information to it? So that if we receive a comment and it's been put in our inbox because It mentions my name or it mentions my company, blah, 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 blah. How do I get to the point where I know what the post actually is just from that event itself, and I don't have to go and like research and look it up or whatever? And for the purposes of this demo, we are calling that enrichment. You could call it hydration. You could call it data joining. It all basically means the same thing. So I'm going to bake
As
that
someone who
logic in
specializes
here.
in streaming, what do you prefer? What's
I
the
call
canonical?
Christmas made me angry. Don't make me think. I would probably say enrichments. I think because hydration probably fits better because you've got a piece of information that is incomplete, if that makes sense, because you've got a comment with the post ID, but it doesn't have anything about the post in it. It's missing information. So I would probably call that hydration. Whereas if we were going to do something to it, like add sentiment analysis or some sort of AI processing on top, I would call that enrichment, because we are enriching it with stuff that wasn't there before, even though those two things are basically the exact same. One of them I'm calling the database to find out what the post is and extract information that way. But if I was doing an AI enrichment, I'm just sending something else. Like I could be sending the content to something and then getting something back and adding it to the payload. So from my perspective, they're both the exact same thing, but I would call them two different things based on the scenario. But I think it's just like a blanket expression, I would say enrichment, because when people say joining streams, you're describing something very, very specific, which is you have a stream of data and a stream of data, and it could be any number of them, but all of them are in stream forms, and you are joining all of those streams together. But that's limiting, because you might have data to add to the payload that has nothing to do with the stream. Like sentiment analysis, you're querying essentially some AI to get back information, but that has nothing to do with the stream. You're not joining a stream. It's just it's a query. So I feel like people in this industry, in the stream processing world, typically call this data joining, stream joins. And to me, it doesn't really make any sense, because I don't like to think of it in terms of the solution, because that's a solution, right? Stream joins is a solution. I like to think of it as like, what is the problem? Like, what is the actual, what is the thing that we're looking to achieve, which is usually enrichments or hydration or whatever you want to call it. Haberdashery.
That makes a frightening amount of sense.
Gobbledygook, we'll call it. We're all English here today. We don't have any Americans on the stream, so we'll call it gobbledygook. We'll call it Willy Wonkery.
Oh, that's hot in the press right now. The Glasgow Willy Wonka experience.
We'll change this demo so it's not the Thomas the Tank Engine fan club. This is the Willy Wonka experience fan club.
Yes, I think so, and it has many more fans this week than it did last week.
There's something about something being really shit that just brings everybody together. Like nobody was hurt.
It's charming.
Yeah, it's charming. Yeah, but Mihai, you're not on the stream. You're not, as in you're not on the chat. You need to come in here and get us out of our Englishness. Pull us out of it.
I'm hoping it might just be bad timing, but there were 9 people watching the stream before you said there are no Americans on here. Let's just call it gobbledygook, and now there are 6.
DJ Carpenter, American here, who also says gobbledygook. Fair play. I mean, I'm happy for the Americans to adopt gobbledygook. What other ones are there? Let's make up some. Get them to absorb it. Right, so the next thing I'm going to do is config the enrichment. I think the question is, can I be bothered? Okay, so what we've got in after... So we've now got a document that looks like this. And what we can do is an SQL query. What does that look like?
So you're looking to do a join between the posts and the comments?
Comments and posts, yeah. So I'm probably going to use an SQL select processor. So a good place to start would be the documentation. I know it's controversial, people, to look at the docs. And, you know, there's some people who feel like this is admitting defeat and they would rather just come in the Discord and make a big noise.
Just read the code. Just read the code. I've never
Just
seen
read
this
the code.
before. This is nice.
And I'm going to do something quite controversial here, and I'm actually going to use the documentation because I can just copy paste this example, which is almost exactly what I want. So what I want is I want to do an SQL select. We'll copy the DSN here. And the table is posts. And we want to get the columns. So I'm going to select just the content and the user. User will come in later, I guess. Oh, sorry, author. We want author. And that's it. We just want the content and the author. Where the ID is equal to thing. It's dollar syntax, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And then the args mapping is this dot post. And the reason why I put this in a branch is because if you do an SQL select, the message gets replaced in its entirety with the result. And we don't want to do that. We want to take some data from this table and we want to put it inside the original payload. We want to enrich it, not replace it. So that's where this result map comes in. So what we're going to have is a mapping where we'll say, I need to decide what this is going to be structured like. So what I could do is I could do root post equals content, this dot content. Actually, let's just consult the documentation as to... Oh, there might be more than one row. So this comes back as a rows of data. That's a good point. Thank you, Ash from the past. And I think it's just an array of the query values as well. So we'll want to say this. We're always going to assume there's only one row. And then we'll get the first value of that, which is the content. And that's going to come back as a string, I believe, or it could come back as a byte slice. So I'm just going to make sure that's a string with the string thing here. And then post author, I'm going to copy this over as well. So that could be the same author. Could be the same person commented as wrote the original post, or they could be two different people. So we're going to capture that data now. And that's basically it, I think. Yeah, that's all we need. Right?
Let's give it a whirl. We'll only know that we've broken it unless we run it.
We'll worry about error handling later. So yeah, I think that's good to go. Let's do it. We'll pipe it through JQ still. Oh, we got an error. We got at least one error. Mapping failed. Failed to assign result. Unable to set target path post as the value post was a non-object type string. Oh, okay, right. So what's happened there is I'm trying to create a new field post, but that field already exists and it's a string. So that is correct. I'm going to remove the old one and I'm going to replace it with this object that's going to get created. The alternative syntax is I have an object literal here, so I replace the string with an object literal that is these two things, but I think I prefer, actually...
It's more obvious that you're deleting something with this. syntax.
Yeah, we'll go with this. Yeah. And the other thing is my mapping is going to apply for, we'll deal with this in a minute, don't worry about that yet. It's also going to apply to posts, so we want to make sure that this branch doesn't get executed if the post itself, if the message is a post type. Now we could put this within a switch processor, which allows you to use logic to decide whether a processor gets executed or not. But in the request map itself, you can actually have some logic where you can, obviously a request map's purpose is to mutate the payload so that the processes that are inside the processor's block look a certain way. But what you can also do is you can use this to prevent the branch from being executed for certain payloads by deleting the root. So what I've got here is if this.type does not equal comment, so if it's not a comment that we've received, we delete the root of the payload. And because we've deleted the message inside the request map, it means the branch never gets executed for that particular payload. Now the next thing we're going to need to do is work out why this comes back null. Tell you what, I'm going to take the result of this, the rows. I'll tell you what, actually, let's take the entirety of the result of the query and we'll populate post with that just so I can see what's coming through. And
just string.
Okay, so there's an error happening. So I need to catch the error. Root.post equals if error. Oh, actually, it might just be returning nothing, right?
Then so the request map at the top, we know we haven't got a comment because if we did have no, hang on. This is only running for comments, but then you're doing a select against posts.
Yeah. Because a comment, so this is a comment at this point. When data reaches this point, it is a comment that's come through. Okay, yeah. Post is the ID, I believe. What if I called it in the table? Yeah, so there's a field called post, which contains the post ID. So what's not happening here is they're not matching up. If I just put...
Can you put a catch in just to log out what we're seeing?
We'll actually get an error log if there is an error.
Okay.
It might not be showing it because we're piping into JQ. Branch error, process has failed. Unable to reference messages structured with this.post. Message is empty. What?
There was something logged just underneath it that looked like it had a post ID. Hang on. No. Author.
Okay, I know what I did. Yeah, it's me.
Oh, it's an array.
So the problem is because I had a request map, the request map gets... So if you don't have a request map, the payload enters the branch unchanged. So it would be the full comment as a JSON object. What I forgot, which is very surprising because I'm the author of this component, is that if you do have a mapping and it results in nothing, then the payload is nothing. So I have a branch here where if this type does not equal comment, I delete the root, but then the implicit else is that nothing happens to the root, which means the root is nothing. What I need to have is an explicit else. It's just this unchanged. What I could do though is I could be cheeky here.
Could you just remove root equals? Would that delete it if? Oh, I see. You have to.
No, so you got to map to root anyway. Otherwise, it's implicit. Yeah. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put. So the root is just going to become the contents of post, which is the ID. I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So we've got this now. So if the type is a comment, then the root of the thing that enters the branch is just the contents of the post. And then what I need to change here is that it's the content as a string is our argument to our query, which is I want a post with this given ID. Otherwise, it gets deleted, so we never enter this branch in the first place. And then when we finish, this goes back to what it was before. So the post content is the first query value, and the author is the second one. And we could be a little bit more technical here, and we could check whether this whether the result of this select actually returned any rows, because it could be that it failed. I will deal with that another time, because that's when we're going to enter like the whole dead letter queue and retrying logic thing. Right now I'm just doing the happy path, what does an enrichment look like situation, so we're not going to worry about that just yet. And that seems to be working. Let's pipe that back into JQ so we can see it for ourselves with our eyes, with our eye meat. And there we go. So that one was null null. This one's null null. Why have you done this to me? Why would you do that? I don't know why you've done that.
Do the whole... set it to this again, just so we can see now that things are working.
Yeah. Both content and author are going to have the entire object, just to make it extra clear. Okay, so we get an array of objects. Oh, okay. Oh, it's actually labeled. Oh, I completely forgot about that. I need to put that in the docs. So we can do this. So the first row, and we get these two fields out. Oops.
You still want to make them strings? I suppose they are strings, aren't they?
I think they will be at this point. We'll find out. There you go. Yeah, they're strings.
Nice.
They're strings, mate. Of course they are. Of course they are. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now we get comments coming through. So when we get a post, it just comes through as is. There's not really anything else to add there. What we will do eventually is we will add the author's information, such as their name and stuff like that. So that'll be another hydration we'll be adding. And then when comments come through, so we have a comment that has an author and it's got some content. And then it also has this post object, which includes information about the original post that this is a comment of. And again, what we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to hydrate the author, and we're also going to want to hydrate the author of the post. So what we're going to have is this kind of dependency graph of a comment depends on the users table and the posts table, and the post that we enrich it with also depends on the users table. So we'll be able to do the selects for the post and our original author of the comment at the same time, potentially, and then we'll want to do the request for the post's author after that. But that means we can do two stages of a workflow, if you think of it, because we can get the author and the post both in flight at the same time for a given message. And that is where we have a processor for that. So once you've arranged things into branches, you can go down the route of putting them within a workflow. And that's when we can have like a DAG of all these different enrichments that might want to happen. And Benthos will basically automatically work out what the maximum parallelism is for all this stuff. But I'll do that later. To be honest, for this week, there's no way we're going to get this far, is there? It's like, what, half an hour?
Yeah. It's optimistic.
So for people just tuning in now, these demo configs, I'm going to put this in the Benthos repo, just as like a fun thing to play with. The last thing for this config is to write out to NATS. So I'll do that now, just to make sure it does get done. But then the other purpose for this is to show people. I'm going to be at Cockroach's offices this week, and we're going to show to people this demo at an event. So this needs to be a demo. Like, I'm going to be using this demo somewhere with human beings for a limited space of time. I can't just have them there for like a 2-hour stream, for example. That wouldn't do. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do like the abridged version of this. But to be honest, I was thinking of actually like building these configs there. I don't think that's sensible.
I think having the configs ready to go, definitely sensible, but maybe
Yeah.
because the way we're thinking of structuring it is after I've spoken and we've done our fireside is to have a more of an exhibition like, you wander around, you chat, and I think at that point, people speaking to you and realizing what they can do with Benthos might have you creating on the fly
Yeah.
configs for
Okay.
their use cases. I think that would be really beneficial for them and Benthos.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So I'm trying to I've been trying to think about this the whole time we've been on stream. You're writing to So the updates we're seeing in your terminal are, as a result, they're coming out of CockroachDB
Yeah.
change feeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
What change feed sync are you using for that? Have you set up Cockroach change feeds, webhook change feeds, or
No,
how are
it's
you
a query I'm
doing that?
making, so we don't need the sync from Cockroach. That's I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't really look into the enterprise stuff for Benthos right now, because if you're using the enterprise solution, you can have Cockroach write that stream out to, I can't remember what your options are. Cockroach DB change feed, because you got quite a lot of options for that.
Yeah, Kafka, Google PubSub, S3 files, webhooks, various others.
Yeah, so those options, like basically, if you've already got that and that's what you want to write data to, then you can just do that. You don't need Benthos for that.
What I tend to do is have Cockroach write out to something like Kafka, but then or maybe S3 with an STS notification, but then I'll have Benthos sitting there ready to perform transforms at that
Yeah.
point.
So if
it's
you had
still,
that, then yeah, 100%, you could just write the data. So for example, you could write the data. Where's your list of connectors for this?
I'll send a link. It should be
Create and configure change feeds.
oh, change feed syncs. See on the left-hand side, two below where you are. There we go. So which one are you using? Because I've been trying to think about it and I still can't figure it out.
So it's just a query. You expose a query where you have a cursor. Let me show you. I'll show you the code.
This is very cool. So essentially, you could build out with Benthos. You could add more syncs to CockroachDB change feeds.
Yeah, exactly.
Without
you can put it wherever
touching
you
the
want.
Cockroach code base. That's really, really cool.
Okay, so you start off with experimental change feed 4, and then they are allowed to specify a bunch of options where we append it in. I'm like building the query because you can have like with XYZ. But the important ones are updated and setting a cursor when we've got it, because that's like this is like your offset commit basically is your cursor to make sure you don't lose any data. So I create experimental change feed 4, and then the tables, because obviously you can have multiple tables as part of the change feed, and then that query just opens up a connection where you're consuming rows. Just like you would when you do like a select statement that's massive, you just basically paginate over the results. And awesome. CockroachDB seems to manage everything else for me. And I get the cursors as part of the feed. So I request the cursor of every row that I receive, which looks like it's just a timestamp. Nice and simple. But it must be more than that.
A file. Were you writing it to a file?
And then, so the way that it's configured in Benthos land is... you can actually choose, because what I do is I get you can have nothing. For example, if you just want to have a lossy system that just grabs the latest change feed, or rather you do a backfill basically every time you run Benthos if you don't have a place to store the cursor. But when you do want to have a cursor saved so you don't keep doing backfills on every restart, is you can specify a cursor cache, and that's a cache resource. So because it's one of Benthos's caches, it can be any of the caches that you can offer. So you can store it in S3, you could store it in a file, which is what I'm doing for this demo, Memcache, Redis. What I will do is, I'm actually surprised we haven't done this already, but we don't have an SQL cache type. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't, because you could just specify, okay, I want to hit this SQL DSN, and the key column is foo and the value column is bar. And then what you could have is within CockroachDB, you could have a table for storing your cursor itself, and then Benthos will use that, which makes way more sense than any of the other options because you've already got CockroachDB deployed. So why wouldn't you? But because I don't have the SQL option here, I haven't done that. I'm just storing it in a file. I've put a little note to do. Maybe I'll do it this week. Actually, I might actually get it done before the demo. But I was thinking I'd implement that soon because that's hella useful to be able to use SQL as just like a cache. Or because we already have NATS deployed as part of this whole overall demo, NATS KV is also an option because it's just a key value that we're doing. So we could use NATS KV, which we've already got support for. Maybe not as a cache yet. We need to add it as like an actual cache type, but we've got it as a processor, and it's pretty powerful. You can do lots with it, but we can definitely store cursors. This would be a fun one to do demos for as well. Mihai says, was thinking of that, but not sure how to do TTL. Maybe an extra column in the table.
TTL on the cache.
So for SQL, NATS, they'll add a TTL eventually. They've got it per bucket, so you just configure that. But with Benthos Land, you can ideally specify a general TTL for all items for a cache, and then you can also specify per item TTLs for cache. So that'll obviously come in eventually for NATS. They're going to add that imminently, I guess. But for these other cache types, the ones that support TTLs, because not all caches support TTLs. But ideally, what we do in SQL Land is, to be honest, I think I'd probably actually just ignore TTLs for SQL to begin with. Just keep things simple.
Well, in Cockroach, you can create row-level TTL anyway, so you can configure it. It could be a database concern.
Ooh.
Yeah, you create it, and then you add a TTL as part of the create statement, or you can alter the table to add and you can drive it from column values.
Okay, so what I would basically say is, if you're going to use SQL as a cache in Benthos Land, Benthos isn't where you would specify TTLs. It's just going to get ignored because I think that every database, because obviously SQL as a connector in Benthos is super generic. You specify the driver and the DSN. Everything else is like your thing.
Which I think is the right thing to do, because then you can speak any SQL dialect.
Yeah, exactly. It opens things up. There's nothing stopping us from adding like an actual CockroachDB cache specifically, but I'll add the SQL one first. But there's nothing stopping you from, like you said, just having a policy on that table that acts as your TTL. But yeah, I think I would err on the side of not worrying about it from the Benthos side and let people do whatever they want. Because I think if you're using SQL to store cache items, you're probably you're obviously creating the table and managing all that stuff separate anyway. Okay, so I'm going to stick this in NATS under the subject. So the subject is dynamic because we're going to have different entity types. This is a really cool thing with NATS where I'm going to basically have it so that you could... The subject is going to break down by the type of the entity coming through. So posts and comments are going to go into those subjects, and then the idea is that the end result of this demo is you're going to have like a config where you can pattern match your NATS consumers for whichever entities you want. So you could just get the comments through, or you could get the posts through, and it's NATS that's going to do the filtering, if that makes sense. So Benthos is going to do the enrichments. Benthos is going to make sure that these entities are all hydrated and complete when they enter this feed. And then NATS is doing the heavy lifting as to filtering out the data. And we're all just having a great time in the hot tub. All of these configs have been designed so that they will still work even if you're in a hot tub. You don't have to worry about that. And we can all just have chill vibes with cocktails or mocktails, depending on how much work you want to get done. You have a hot tub at your new office. Yes?
I'm afraid not. I'm sorry to disappoint. Oh. There might well be a hot tub that I'm completely unaware of.
I think I'm busy that day now.
Yeah, I think I've become
Something
busy
came up
as well.
There's got to be a hot tub place in London. rent them
I'm
instead.
sure there are many hot tub places. We'll probably end up in the wrong one, but I'm sure there are many.
So I think this is it for my demo, you know, for now. Because we've got the enrichments. Obviously, thing is, like, if I had the user enrichments as well, it's just more of the same thing. So it's not particularly interesting from the demo's perspective. Obviously, for having a complete solution, I will eventually for the repo. But for this week, there's not really much else we'll need, right?
Don't think so, other than maybe showing the messages arriving in NATS. But I think other than that, it's...
That's a super easy config as well. Actually, I can probably just use NATS CLI. But then I'm the Benthos guy. More Benthos.
Stand it out.
I've got a Benthos config for executing Benthos. Okay, I think I'm prepped then basically for this. I think I'm sorted.
I think so. Other than the hot tub, which I'm
Just
again
wing it.
very sorry about.
Is there going to be a TV there? Do you know?
I would say yes. I think there is.
Okay.
But I'll let you know tomorrow.
Basically, I will be mentally ready for there to be basically nothing, and then nothing can go wrong. But if there is a TV,
and then we'll come in and surprise you with a hot tub
and soft drinks
with a TV in it.
Oh, and a cocktail person. Do you have any crazy stuff in your office, like baristas and juice bar people or anything like that?
We work in a shared office space, so we've got probably a 60-seater private office with a couple of meeting rooms and lots of desks, but the rest of it is shared working space. So if there's a hot tub in the shared working space, I'm not 100% sure. I doubt it, but that's where the event's going to be. There's like a big event space that's part of that shared working space.
Are you hiring right now?
We are in a number of places.
Do you want to tell people about
that? There's nothing in my team. Although I suppose actually we are. Yeah, so we're hiring a cloud engineer to help us build out the pipeline for all of our documentation and education stuff. But there are teams hiring across the board, but the company's growing. So
gross.
Yes, always. Huh?
Gross.
Why?
Don't grow. You're doing fine.
Don't grow. Okay, I'll let management know that we need
Stay
to
lean.
put the brakes on immediately.
Lean cockroaches. Actually, no, that's not very fitting of cockroaches. You want to spread and infest.
Spread. Exactly.
Do you get pressure? Because I know that there was like a point a while ago where people were like really pressuring CockroachDB to change its name, which I thought was really lame. I can kind of.
We love our name.
Yeah,
we love our name. There's going to be two things that survive a nuclear apocalypse: cockroaches and Keith Richards. We couldn't call it Keith Richards DB because that would have been silly.
Yeah.
So no, CockroachDB. It raises eyebrows. It gets people talking. And there's a really cute video on YouTube about our customers and their thoughts on the name.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's worth have a look in the comments for the link to that video if I remember to add it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's obviously, I mean, at the end of the day, there is a limit to like having dumb, like I've always had dumb logos and dumb names for like everything I've made, and you know it's just a bit of fun. But then at the end of the day, like you're still, you know, there's still some. It's all for business, right? It's everything that we make as engineers. It's not just for like mucking around. You intend for like businesses to use it, but then you have this like instinct to think that businesses only want really corporate, bland anything, and it's just obviously not the case. And then you know you kind of realize, oh, you can have fun. Like you can make something that's like a corporate product that's going to be, you know, adopted by enterprises and startups alike, and it can be a bit fun. It can be a bit playful and a bit silly. And then you know you kind of but you still think there's obviously a limit to how like silly it can be, or you know how vulgar or you know gross the imagery can be. Obviously, the logo for CockroachDB is cute by definition. It's a cute little logo. But yeah, it's kind of interesting how like you get you get naysayers who object based on, I just don't like it, but it's framed in a way where it's like, this is your problem because people aren't going to adopt your thing because of this thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is, like, it doesn't make any difference.
People,
Like, it's a technical solution as well. So even if your logo was like, dying animal screaming out in pain, and you did this horrible imagery called like death and mutilation DB, if it solves the technical problem in the right way, then people are still going to use it, right?
And they do. Yeah.
But yeah, CockroachDB
some of the
is
biggest
legit.
enterprises. Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, it's still, because I remember years ago when I heard of it, I knew two things about it. I knew its name and I knew that it was written in Go. And obviously there was the sort of resiliency lean to it, but I didn't really know anything other than that. But anytime I thought about new databases for years, it would like come up, because obviously the Go aspect, I'm kind of interested in Go-based projects. And then just the name. That's literally it. It's just the name.
It does what it says on the name. It survives anything you throw at it. We've got companies who have game days because they want to test the resilience of their product, and the team that oversee the database, it's a day off. It's a day off for them because they just can't seem to kill it.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what it's been designed for.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like playing around with it, mostly just because it's easy to pick up as well. It's been very easy to just muck around with. I didn't realize about the enterprise demo.
Yeah, so instead of Cockroach start single node, do Cockroach demo insecure if you want to. That's typically what I end up doing for local development, and instead of getting the empty cluster you got for a single node, you'll get an enterprise version of exactly that. I think the enterprise, the change feed that you're using in Benthos will continue to work, but then you have the additional benefit of being able to use the enterprise change feed, and along with everything else in there that you get for enterprise.
The one that I'm using is marked experimental, but does that imply that they might change, as in like break backwards compatibility or whatever with it? Or is it just that it's...
Honestly, don't know. I don't know why it's got the moniker experimental. I think it's probably to do with that, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know why it's called that and not core change feed or something like that, because typically we would refer to the core product, the non-enterprise, as core.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been in the product. The enterprise change feed's been in the product for years. So I suppose by changing that, we'd break it for anyone who's using core.
Yeah.
Which we wouldn't want to do.
Cool. Okay. Does anybody have questions or anything in the chat? Because I'm done with configs at this point. I'm done with work. If anybody wants to come and ask questions in the voice chat, I don't think there will be any. We rarely get takers. People are very shy with the voice chat. But if anybody wants to come in, then do so. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap this up. Also, like and subscribe. Check out the event that I'm going to put in the description. If you're watching this live, then I won't have updated the description yet, so you're just going to have to Google it. But if you're watching this after the event, I will hopefully have updated with the event if you want to come and hang out in London this week. Otherwise, just show up randomly at CockroachDB's London offices any time of the week, any day. And I'm sure if you're loud enough, it's a co-working space, right? So anybody can just sneak in if they pull the right strings. So
provided you get through security at the door, you're in the shared working space.
There are very few co-working spaces in Reading where I can't get in. They're all
You're a bit of a
vulnerable.
Social engineer.
A bit of social engineering. Yep. Sometimes climbing. Just got to know where the cameras are. Matt says, hello, Jeff, if that is your real name. Thanks. Great comment, great content there. Anything you want to close off with before I kill this stream?
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I asked so many questions. I know that
Nice.
wasn't my role, and I will that will haunt me forever.
Basically, I just want somebody who just every couple of minutes goes, wow,
You're
wow,
amazing.
wow, well done.
Oh,
Oh,
I didn't know
that's
you could do
brilliant.
that.
I wouldn't have
Benthos is
thought of that.
amazing.
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Okay, noted for next time.
Yeah. Right, peace, everyone. Hopefully this has been interesting because I'm going to be demoing it to people soon. So if it's not interesting, let me know and I'll throw it all away and I'll redo it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I mean, basically, whenever you want to come on. I'm going to be streaming again, probably most weekdays now in the evenings. So if you want to come and hang out and watch the stream, that would be really convenient since that's the point. And if you want to join Rob or anybody else and just come and chit chat, then you're free to do that. It's literally an open voice channel. Anybody can just come in here. But obviously, ideally, to talk about what we're doing on the stream and not your personal issues. But yeah, thanks everybody. Bye.
Take care. Bye.